2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's the cha-cha of evolution. Hello everybody. This video is going to be about what kind of leaders we need, and it's also going to be a homage to one of the few political leaders we've had in this world who has been, in my view at least, spiritually awake. But first, let's set the stage a little bit. I sometimes speak about the need to break free from the matrix. You've heard me say that probably, and I've written it in essays and things like that. So what is that? I've even said it to friends that are not, at least not obviously, on the spiritual path, and it has them a little bit bewildered. So the matrix, I know that this term / film reference is a little bit overused, but I think it is really to the point, so that's why I'm using it quite a bit. And I guess there are just as many descriptions, interpretations of this term as there are thinking minds. But anyway, in my view, my interpretation goes something like this. The matrix is the system of structures that keeps our egos busy and our spiritual essences in check. Meaning, governments, citizenships, international organizations, educational institutions, scientific institutions, judicial institutions, financial institutions, mass media, corporations, unions, congregations. One of the most important components of this system is the network of leaders. I mean, whether they are in political, financial, scientific, or religious positions doesn't really matter much, because in principle they all have the same function. But for the sake of simplicity, I will focus mainly on the political ones here, I think. Hardly anybody questions the need for leaders, regardless of societal context. There's a widespread idea that without leaders and formal rules, for that matter, greed would take over and chaos would ensue. The idea is that civilization is just a thin veneer that has to be shielded at all times. This is a theory, a narrative. It's not a fact. But the narrative is often backed up by anecdotal evidence, episodes that are said to prove that humans display their worst sides when not checked by laws and societal structures. There's a Dutch historian by the name of Rutger Bregman, whom I have written about and vlogged about, and even made an episode on the podcast about. I can't remember the number of that episode right now, but it was about a year ago. Anyway, in his book Humankind, Rutger Bregman brilliantly debunks many of these stories and compellingly draws the conclusion that actually the opposite is true. Human beings are inherently kind, and the bulk of human violence actually started when the construction of, or rather with the construction of hierarchies and borders. If fear of a lurking chaos can be upheld within the public, the general public, this of course makes it a lot easier for traditional leaders to justify their positions and their roles. Goes without saying. The veneer theory is in their best interest, the leader's best interest. And there is no conspiracy theory behind that statement, because, I mean, these leaders probably believe in that theory themselves. Most of them do, I guess. I think they are merely convinced that they're safeguarding a necessary structure. And I obviously think that they're wrong about that necessity. So how to correct this fault? Well, the evolution of humankind is not something that happens over a weekend. And I can't claim to know how to wake up these matrix-ingrained leaders. But I see signs in the media, to the extent that I now follow the media these days, the news, I mean, that people are increasingly uncomfortable with the top-down order. I think we will more and more see a movement towards other kinds of governance, more horizontal kinds of governance. And but as always, it's going to be a process that is turbulent, a bit messy, because many people will feel threatened by this new type of thinking. But that is the cha-cha of human evolution. You know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's the cha-cha of evolution. So do I mean that our society eventually should become some kind of amorph collection of individuals without any inherent organization at all? No. I mean, that sounds more like a description of the base reality in a different dimension. I mean that as long as we speak about physical humans in this three-dimensional world, we will always need 2 categories of people that are not leaders in the traditional sense that we've had them for thousands of years, but we will always need people who inspire us and people who are good at organizing. So we will always need inspirers and administrators, those 2 categories. To the extent that we do need large societal structures still in the far future, we will need wise and sensitive individuals to be in charge of those, people to whom unconditional love is not some kind of fluffy philosophical concept that you can read about in books, but a self-evident tenet of life. But there is an unfortunate catch, because people who are wise and have genuine love and deep respect for others, they don't really want to boss, because to them it feels intuitively wrong, it feels unworthy to tell other people what to do. Now, history hasn't been completely void of leaders who have understood the inhumanity of this hierarchical system that we've had for so long. I guess one of those in this very tiny group of awakened, spiritually aware and conscious leaders was Mahatma Gandhi. Another one, probably Nelson Mandela in his later years. I would say not when he was younger, but in his later years. But in my mind, one person stands out, one man who was a writer and a dissident, and who eventually became the president, the elected president of the country where he lived. A task that he probably wasn't very comfortable with, actually. I'm talking about the Czech president Vaclav Havel. The following is an excerpt from a speech that Havel held in Philadelphia in 1994 on the occasion of receiving the Liberty Medal. To learn that words like these have been uttered by a top politician in modern times is as surprising as it is inspiring. Havel realized precisely the need for humankind to leave its societal matrix behind, to transcend in order to survive, actually. This is what he said. I think there are good reasons for suggesting that the modern age has ended. The world of our experiences seems chaotic, disconnected, confusing. There appear to be no integrating forces, no unified meaning, no true inner understanding of phenomena in our experience of the world. Experts can explain anything in the objective world to us, yet we understand our own lives less and less. In short, we live in the postmodern world, where everything is possible and almost nothing is certain. The idea of human rights and freedoms must be an integral part of any meaningful world order. Yet I think it must be anchored in a different place and in a different way than has been the case so far. We are not at all just an accidental anomaly, the microscopic caprice of a tiny particle whirling in the endless depths of the universe. Instead, we're mysteriously connected to the entire universe. We are mirrored in it, just as the entire evolution of the universe is mirrored in us. Until recently, it might have seemed that we were an unhappy bit of mildew on a heavenly body, whirling in space among many that have no mildew on them at all. That was something that classical science could explain. Yet the moment it begins to appear that we're deeply connected to the entire universe, science reaches the outer limits of its powers. What we have long projected into our forgotten myths and what perhaps has always lain dormant within us as archetypes is the awareness of our being anchored in the earth and the universe. The awareness that we're not here alone, nor for ourselves alone, but that we are an integral part of higher mysterious entities against whom it is not advisable to blaspheme. Yes, the only real hope of people today is probably a renewal of our certainty that we are rooted in the earth and at the same time the cosmos. This awareness endows us with a capacity for self-transcendence. Politicians at international forums may reiterate 1,000 times that the basis of the new world order must be universal respect for human rights, but it will mean nothing as long as this imperative doesn't derive from the respect of the miracle of being, the miracle of the universe, the miracle of nature, the miracle of our own existence. Only someone who submits to the authority of the universal order and of creation, who values the right to be part of it and a participant in it, can genuinely value himself and his neighbors and thus honor their rights as well. It logically follows that in today's multicultural world, the truly reliable path to coexistence, to peaceful coexistence and creative cooperation must start from what is at the root of all cultures and what lies infinitely deeper in human hearts and minds than political opinion, convictions, antipathies or sympathies. It must be rooted in self-transcendence. Do we hear these kinds of deep messages from, say, Joe Biden, Boris Johnson, Christine Lagarde, Pedro Sanchez, Narendra Modi? No, we don't, because they are structural leaders. They are products of a form. I don't want to denigrate anyone, but I'm pretty sure that in many cases our structural leaders are less wise than you or me, and maybe even in some cases less intelligent than you or me, or even less knowledgeable than you or me. Like I said earlier, wise people know that they have no business deciding over other people's lives. But these leaders, these structural leaders, they are very good at one thing. They're good at conforming, and they're very good at playing the power game that has been taken for granted for thousands of years. They know how to do that. To some extent, this is due to personality traits, but I would say that mainly it is due to them having a thicker veil than others, than you or me probably, between the higher self and the programmed matrix of this three-dimensional world. Leaders who communicate the kind of insights, the wisdom that Vaclav Havel did, they're not leaders in the traditional sense. They are inspirers. People like Havel can inspire us to be the best versions of ourselves, to try to find our soul's purpose, in brief, to follow our hearts, to follow our passion. And by doing that, we transcend. That means that we go beyond our egos and we feel the joy in joining forces with others because we know that they are we and we are they. Such a transformation will set the stage for limitless human creation and creativity. But we will need some people who are good at organizing and who love doing that. So, welcome to the new world, experienced by free, co-creating and interconnected individuals, energized by inspirers, and held together by designated administrators. Thank you, Vaclav Havel, for your inspirational wisdom. Love you guys. See you next time. If you like this video and other interviews and talks on Mind the Shift, please like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate all the support. And you can follow Mind the Shift on Facebook and Instagram, and you can follow me, Anders Bolling, on all the main social media and also on medium.com. Thank you.